Good morning, everyone. How are you this fantastic morning? It's great to have you here. Thanks so much for stopping for a moment, sharing some coffee with me. If this is your first time to catch my live broadcast, my name is Renee Harden by trade. I am an editor and a writing coach. I love sharing stories. I love interesting stories. I love it when you tell me your stories, and I love sharing my stories. So that's what I do every Saturday morning right here on the socials. As I come on here and I share a story about my wonderful mugs that I have. And today's mug is the Eagles mug that my daughter got me from the show that she was working. She did two shows down here at Bridgestone Arena. Oh, by the way, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee. If you notice, the background is different from when you normally see me. This is not my office. This is not hanging in my office. This is actually a painting. I'll show you what it is if I can do that. It's actually a painting of Peaky Blinders that my daughter has up on the wall. Um, we actually bought that for her for Christmas one year because they love the show. I love the show. Talk about a great story. We're waiting for, the next installment. What is it? Is it going to be a movie? Is it going to be the show? What is it? Viewers want to know. Well, anyway, so I'm here visiting in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a beautiful day here. Yesterday we had a few little thunderstorms come through, pop in and out. It's been a lot cooler here than it has been in Dallas. I talked to my husband this week, and he said, boy, when you left Dallas, you took the cool weather with you, because it's been in the 90s in Dallas since I've been gone. And so one thing I am looking forward to is getting back to my pool. Oh, yes. I love that. That's if you're in Texas and you don't have a swimming pool, you're crazy. Or if you don't have close proximity to a pool or the lake, just know that. So I come every Saturday morning with a story and a mug. And so this week's mug is from the Eagles concert. The Eagles, gosh, the Eagles. The Eagles. Some of you viewers may not even know who the Eagles are because that's my life. But the Eagles, great music group. They did two shows here in Nashville. My daughter worked the show. And so I said, ooh, she said, Mom, they have mugs. And of course, I was all set on that. So, new mug, Eagles. Speaking of my daughter, look at here. Here they come. So hello, good morning. Hello, my dear. There she is. Look at her beautiful little face. Savannah is in charge of all my social stuff. So all the videos you see, all the socials that I post, created, helped by my beautiful virtual assistant, my daughter. Good morning, Sherry. Good to see you here. How are things up in Fargo? I think Sherry has been enjoying some time with her daughter, Kelly. And Sherry is a member of my book club. Love having her in that. So, speaking of great stories, there have been so many stories happen this week. Interesting stories, crazy stories. Really cool stories, and one that I came across yesterday. So I don't know how many of you remember the movie Spinal Tap. Do you remember the movie Spinal Tap? Funny mockumentary movies made by a guy named Christopher Guest with a bunch of people. Spinal Tap, huge movie. In 2024, they're having the 40th anniversary of this movie. Again, showing my age. But Spinal Tap, funny movie. Well, there's a sequel coming out to it. Who would have thought that they would actually get together and create another Spinal Tap? How do you even improve on that? So here's something that I found about the movie. Totally excited. Like, how do you take a story, an original story, and retell it and make sure that you stay true to the viewers who are used to seeing it, and yet create some new viewers, some new people interested in the storyline. So if you're not familiar with Spinal Tap, if you've ever watched, Best in Show, Waiting for Guffman, any of those movies, those are all mockumentary movies. They are movies that come out looking like a documentary, but actually you realize they're fictional characters, they're fictional settings, but they're comedic in storyline. Well, so Spinal Tap, they're creating another. This is from Cannes, from the Cannes Film Festival. But Castle Rock Entertainment has set a first project out of the gate that will have a familiar ring. It's Spinal Tap 2, a sequel to the fabled rock mockumentary. So the funny thing is, it's about a band. It's about an English band who tries to tour They think they're a big deal. They're really not. And all kinds of obstacles and foibles happen along the way that are comedic, and yet they still hang on as being, yeah, the best rock band ever, and they're really not. So the sequel is coming out. So how do you take a storyline like that and improve on it? Well, so the storyline that they are presenting is that okay, so the three members, and by the way, the actors who acted in this show actually wrote all the music. There was an album, a real album put out to support this film, and they actually created the music to accompany the story. How about that, right? So here's the premise for the movie. They've played Albert Hall, they've played Wembley Stadium all over the country and in Europe. They haven't spent any time together recently. Again, it's been 40 years since the original movie. And that became the premise. That became the premise, that the band has been apart for so long. How do you put a band back together and have them go out and tour? Well, how do you put a band back together and tour after many years of not touring? Hello, Eagles, right? So the idea was that Ian Faith, who was their manager that you see in the first movie, has passed away. And in reality, the actor who played their manager actually did pass away. And so Ian's widow, in the character in the movie, Ian's widow inherited a contract that said Spinal Tap owes them one more concert. She was basically going to sue them if they didn't. So all these years and a lot of bad blood we'll get into as they're thrown back together and forced to deal with each other and play this concert. So what a great storyline. What a great premise to revive an old story and play it as a new story. So I'm really looking forward to that. Again, bands that are able to come back together and tell their story in fun and new ways. That's really fun, right? Right, Wendy. I know. I'm really looking forward to it. When I saw that come across my feed, I was super excited about that. So great stories. They're always all around us. There are things going on all the time. And there are so many great stories that you can involve with. One way you can do them is to join my book club. Now, we are in the middle of a great book. If you've ever been to New York and you've seen the Pierpont, I keep saying Pierpont, but it's Pierpont Morgan Library. Let me give you a better picture. If you've ever seen the movie Beauty and the Beast, the Disney version of Beauty and the Beast, and you remember when Beast takes Belle and shows her his library and opens the door, and she's just like, right, floor to ceiling bookshelves and all of that. Well, that was taken and inspired by the actual Morgan Library in New York. And so this story is a fictionalized account of the real woman who was J.P. Morgan's curator and head librarian. And she was tasked with acquiring some of the most rare and ancient manuscripts and texts and create a library for J.P. Morgan. You know, J.P. Morgan of J.P. Morgan Financial Services, if you're familiar with that. So it's fun to read the story. However, an interesting point in this story is has to do with Belle DeCosta Green, her actual name, what her real name was when she was born, and what her actual ethnicity is. Because again, this is at a time at the turn of the century, and racism is still alive and well. And Belle DeCosta Green is really not Black, but she's also not white. And how does she maintain her presence and her identity in a world that sees her as something different? So it's the story of the personal librarian of J.P. Morgan. So this is a fascinating story. We're so excited. We're reading it. You still have time to jump into the book club and join us for this book because it's really great. You can't put it down. You can't put it down. I read some more chapters yesterday, and I love hearing about their visit to the Vanderbilts for dinner And I've been to the Vanderbilt mansion in Asheville, North Carolina. So if you've ever actually been to the Vanderbilt estate and seen it, to read this story and to hear them talk about Belle being there with Mr. Morgan, having dinner with the Vanderbilt family, it's fascinating. As she describes what it was like to walk into the Vanderbilt library and her vision for what she was creating for JP Morgan. So anyway, great story. Hope you can join us for that. The other books that we are going to be reading this summer, I'm really excited about because, of course, they have a bookish theme. But we are going to be reading, and interestingly enough, and I mentioned this last week, for the month of June, we're going to be reading the Dictionary of Lost Words. Right now, Reese Witherspoon is doing this exact book in her book club for the month of May. So I was kind of tickled that a book that I had in queue for my book club is one that Reese is doing. So yay. Good books, right? She picks really great books, and she also adapts them into films with her production company. So one of those books coming up this summer that I'm super excited about is the adaptation she's making from Where the Crawdads Sing, a huge blockbuster book a couple of years ago. I read it in Reese's book club when she did it. Fabulous story. And no one could put this in film like Reese can. So I'm really looking forward to that. But for the month of June, we're going to be reading the Dictionary of Lost Words. And this has to do with a story behind the people, hint women, who were instrumental in creating the Oxford English Dictionary. Ooh, stories that we don't know about that we get to find out about by reading books. So June, the month of June, we'll be reading the Dictionary of Lost Words. And then for the month of July, and I'm really excited about this because, listen, girls, we all need a good, fun rom-com, right? For the summer, don't you love to just sit by the pool or go to the beach and have a fun little rom-com story? Well, this one is going to be a fun one. Emily Henry, author of The People That You Meet on Vacation. I read that one last summer. Totally fun book. And so she's done it again. She's written her next fun beach read, and it's called Book Lovers. It's a story about a woman who is a literary agent, a guy who is an acquisitions editor. And are they suited for each other? Because they keep running into each other in all kinds of different scenarios. And she's just like, ugh, him again. And he's like, oh, really? Her again? So what happens to our two characters? Do they end up together? Do they get past their stuff? Because after all, they are book lovers. They work in the publishing industry. So for the month of July, that's going to be our book read, a fun rom-com. So I hope you can join us. We have a great time. We have 2 live discussions during the month. We get to discuss some really fun books. Oops, like that one. Trying to hide that one, actually. But we do get to discuss some really fun books. We talk about the characters. Backing you here. All right, here we go. Good heavens. This is why I need a technical editor during live streaming, because too many buttons to push. I end up pushing the wrong one. All right, let me get this out of queue. So all that to say, we need another sip of coffee. That's what we need. Great stories written by fun people. And I love that my job is part of that I get to work with some incredible people who are telling their stories and sharing their stories with people, hopefully to help them, entertain them, make them laugh, or more importantly, encourage them and empower them to keep moving forward with whatever they're doing. So I have had the privilege of working with some amazing people in my career. I've been doing this now for 8 years. And my story is But I was doing this sort of part-time, working freelance for a friend and mentor of mine who worked for Thomas Nelson, was actually Michael Hyatt's personal editor. And she has edited hundreds of books. And so I worked freelance for her while I was married and raising my children, because it was a fun way for me to keep my foot in the industry while making a little money and just sort of keeping myself, because I was also teaching high school English and academic writing. So I didn't have time to do it full time. When my late husband passed in 2013, I found myself, after 25 years not working in the corporate world, finding myself needing to re-enter the workforce. Let me reiterate, after 25 years. What I discovered is publishing entered a whole new realm of digital, and things were changing, things were moving. Publishing houses were acquiring other smaller ones. So here in Nashville, Thomas Nelson and Zondervan, which is, those are two Christian publishing arms, merged. And then shortly after that merger, about a year and a half later, HarperCollins Publishing came in and acquired Thomas Nelson and Zondervan as their Christian publishing arm of their main publishing house. And so I was working part-time for my sweet friend, Alice, who is also a publishing industry mentor to me. She has been instrumental in helping me get back on my feet, get back into the industry, make the right contacts. And so 8 months after my husband passed, what would any widow do besides being in the fetal position? Well, they start a company, right? She encouraged me and said, Renee, you can do this. You've been doing this for me for a while now. You can do this. I'm moving into a new phase of my business. I'm not going to be editing anymore. I need you to take over some of these accounts. Oh, I was like, wait. Are you sure? Are you sure I can do this? Well, 8 years later, and many books under my belt, I have had the honor and privilege of working with some fantastic people as they've come forward to share their stories with the world. And I'm super excited today because I've got one of my authors with me to chat. Yes, I did it. Yes, I did, Savannah. And it was exciting. It was scary, but most of all, it has been one of the most fun things that I've been able to do as I recreated and rebuilt my life. So I love working with authors who do the same thing. And when they bring their stories to the forefront, and I get to watch the process of them take their story from, just a Word document that they send to me, to us working and whittling and revising and changing and tweaking and collaborating with designers and the formatter, and having that book come to fruition is just such a blessed thing. And so I'm excited to get to share with you my client. So she just put out a book. Her book is called Half-Baked Love, Navigating the Messy Middle of Divorce. And I've had the privilege of working with Veronica over these last few months to get this book out into the world. She is celebrating tomorrow by having her book launch party. But more importantly, the publication of this book has a redeeming quality and a redeeming story that I absolutely had to share with you all. So it is my great honor and privilege to introduce you to my friend and now officially published author, Veronica Colón. Veronica, how are you doing, my beautiful, sweet friend?
Very excited, especially about the party tomorrow, but really excited to be on here with you. I did not know your story with Alice. I'm like so blown away. Congratulations. That's so badass.
Well, so here's a little bit about Veronica and I. So Veronica and I know each other because we attended church together back into the late 2000s. We were on the worship team together. I stood by this beautiful woman as we sang together on stage. So I knew Veronica as a friend and did not know a lot about her story. Of course, she's now finding out about mine. My late husband passed and we were attending church. So I think you remember that time.
Yeah.
After that, my life sort of morphed and changed. And then I remarried in 2017 and moved back to Dallas, which is where I used to live before I moved to Nashville. And and so my fun story about that, Veronica, is that my husband now, Michael, and I, back in the 80s. So this goes way back, and this is why I wanted to wait to share this story with you now, because just to talk about how God will redeem our past and give us a new story. So in 2015, they had a 30-year reunion of the radio station that I used to work at back in Dallas. And I thought, well, okay, this is going to be a great time for me to sort of get back out in the social world, being a single woman again after not being single for 30 years. And these are my people. We go way back. I feel safe here. So I think I can do this. So I went back to Dallas. We had the 30-year reunion. There was over 150 people there. I mean, it was all the people that had ever worked on the radio station, all the air staff, the support staff, the record rep people that we worked with from Warner Brothers, Elektra. I mean, you name them, they were there. In fact, the mayor of Dallas at the time even came, and I was like, wait a minute, wasn't that Mike Rawlings who used to do the weekend sports show? And they're like, yeah, he's now the mayor of Dallas. So I was like, because this guy showed up at the party with all this security and entourage, and I was like, who the heck is that? So that's kind of funny. And I ran into Michael. Now, Michael used to work down the hall, promotions department. I was in the sales department. I was, you could call it a glorified secretary, but back in those days, we were the admin, and I had 12 account executives that I'm talking, creating proposals, writing copy, all that kind of stuff. And so I was in the sales department. We were a big rock radio station in Dallas. Our morning show had been on the cover of Rolling Stone. We'd been out to LA doing broadcasts at the Hard Rock. So we were really popular. And Michael was down the hall and to the left because he worked in the promotions department. He was one of four-person promotions department. He was the one I had to go to when I had to get tickets for clients, when I had to get T-shirts to give winners, those kinds of things. So it was always, hey, Michael, do you have the keys to the prize closet? Hey, Michael, here's the log sheets for me. That was the extent of our interaction. Yeah. And in 1985, he left the station. Just came in one day and also I'm like, wow, okay, Michael's not here anymore. So he left the station. It was the same year that I met Sam, my late husband. I, got married. A lot of people at the radio station came to the wedding. So got married, had Seth and Savannah. 1995, Sam gets hired by Brooks and Dunn. We moved to Nashville. I was no longer a mom. I mean, no longer a working woman in radio. I was a mom of 2 kids. Savannah was 12 weeks old when we moved to Nashville. Wow. And so I moved to Nashville and I became mom. And Sam went on the road. He worked for Band of Lights. He started touring. That was my story, right? And so then I meet you at the Oasis. So we had the reunion. I hadn't seen Michael in 30 years. 30 years. And so we talked. We were like, wow, what's been going on in your life for the last 30 years? We talked. Next thing you know, later that summer, I come back through Dallas because I had a client in Austin that I was seeing. I have family in Austin that I was seeing. I'm still seeing my friends. And he said, hey, when you come back, or I posted in the Facebook group and said, hey, everybody, great to see folks. Reunion was spectacular. I'm coming back through town. My schedule's really erratic, but if anybody has time for coffee or lunch, whatever, I'd love to see you if we can get together, blah, 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 right? No big deal. Yeah. This message from Michael that says, hey, when you're on your way back from Austin, could I take you to dinner? Yeah. And I went, did I just get asked out by a guy? Because it'd been 30 years, right? Yeah. 30 years. So needless to say, May 30th of this month, we will celebrate our 5th wedding anniversary.
5 years. Oh my gosh.
This man.
That's amazing.
He long distance dated for a while. He would come to Nashville and visit. I would go to Dallas and visit. We would go to concerts and do fun things and everything. And one day he said, can you clear time on your calendar? And I said, sure. Well, why? I want to take you to London. What? And in my mind, anybody else would be like, oh my God, London. I was like, wait a minute, you want to take me out of the country? How do I feel about this? I don't know how I feel. Maybe it's
Am I going to be safe?
Right? You're taking me out of the country. Okay. And of course, my kids are like, Mom, go, good grief, go, Mom.
Yeah.
Long story short, in the middle of the British Museum, right in front of the Rosetta Stone, he proposed to me. And that's been my story. And so I love to encourage people because I'm like, look, I was 55 years old and look at me. I mean, if God can redeem my story, he'll redeem your story.
Yeah.
When you tell your story, when you share your story with people, it inspires them, it encourages them, and helps and gives them hope and lets them know, okay, my story's not finished yet.
Yeah.
And so when I got your manuscript and read it, first of all, and of course being in Dallas, I wanted to if I'd been in town, I would have said, can we have coffee? Can I come see you? Because I wanted to hug you. So that's why I cannot wait to see you tomorrow. Because we've been doing all of this long distance, right? We've been doing this via Zoom and calls and everything, but I cannot wait to hug you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I know only part of your story, and I learned the other part of your story as I read your manuscript. So it so touched my heart. I wanted to really help you make this happen because I feel your story has, and I've already seen you've got glowing reviews, so which is great. And so I am just so proud of you for putting this together and sharing your story. So what I want you to do is share with the viewers today here and others that are going to watch, share with them your story of just what happened, and tell them a little bit about what your book is about.
So Half Baked Love, it really, honestly, it started off as therapy for me. So I got married. I was super excited to get married. Okay. I was like an older bride for the South. Okay. I got married. I think I was 31, about to be 32 in a few months. And
Just a baby.
It's what?
Just a baby.
Just my kid, just doesn't know how to talk. It's fine. But I got married later than what I thought was probably acceptable for the South. And I was so excited to be married. And then it was like I hit a brick wall. It was like my husband didn't want to be with me. It's just very emotionally detached, physically detached. He had a job where he was always leaving town. And so very early into the marriage, I think 2 months into being married, I find out I'm pregnant, and I'm so excited, always wanted to be a mom. And I'm like, the moment, been waiting for my whole life. And then, he just keeps getting more and more detached. And then, fast forward to month 9, 4 weeks before I give birth, he confesses that he's having an affair. I've had my suspicions the whole time, but I thought, he kept on saying oh, you're just hormonal. You're just hormonal. It's just pregnancy hormones, whatever. But 4 weeks before I gave birth, he confesses he's been having an affair basically my entire marriage. So the entire marriage is a sham. The entire marriage is a lie. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, holy shit. You know what I mean? It's
when I read that, I was like, what? How is it? Because you are such a beautiful person and you were so sweet. And I was just like, wait a minute. She's a smart girl. How does this happen? So yeah.
It was crazy. I was really shocked. On a lot of different levels, but really, you hear about it, right? And you just never kind of expect it to happen to you. Or on the converse, you feel like if it is happening, you automatically know. And so that's kind of where the book was for me, where trying to really process these feelings of what did I miss? You know what I mean? What were those red flags that I missed in the beginning? What could have happened that I could have seen sooner or done better? And so the book started off 100% as therapy for me. It was I just needed to process. I needed to write it down because I had a newborn. I had and I was doing everything by myself. And so I was like, at the end of the night, which there's really no end of the night with a newborn, right? But it's like,
Right.
when I had my like 2 hours or 3 hour stretches of sleep, I would just be writing and just writing my feelings. And he wasn't here. And so, I mean, there's parts of the book. This is crazy because I actually reread a couple of parts of my book the other day. And this is a very weird statement, but I would reread and see where my emotions were. And that was my gauge of whether or not it was healed. It was a very,
Yep.
very cathartic experience for me. So that's what I wrote the book about. And I never thought I'd publish it, to be honest. I have always wanted to be an author. And, you know, somebody wrote a very mean, hurtful comment to me in a text message. And it was, I had this moment where I realized, I'm like, okay, I wrote this book for my therapy, but then I realized it would help people. It really would, because I'm not the only person who's lived this. I'm not the only person who's been here, but I still feel like I came out better on the other side, you know, because I really dug into the personal development and really, you know, seeking God through the whole process and being like, what am I doing here? And really like, you know, I'm not like a hyper spiritual person, but like I do believe in God, and like really just partnering, you know, with God and the Holy Spirit and asking him, like, help me be a better mom because I'm exhausted. I don't have anything right now. You know, help me be a better mom because I'm just broken. Like my heart is completely shattered, you know? And like in my book, this is where I was getting, I reread the part where I wrote, my go-to this week has been making a bottle while crying my face off. I'm crying about it right now. But I was just like, man, like, and I'm not crying because I'm still hurting about it, but I just remember, being in that moment.
And I can tell you as your editor, when I came to those places, I mean, my baby's, you know, Savannah is 27.
Yeah.
And I remember still those nights where you are just, you can barely muster the energy to just stand. And I couldn't even imagine, like, even though my husband traveled on the road a lot, we had a solid marriage. I didn't have those problems. And so, but I know that in even being at home taking care of a baby by yourself, where I can't even imagine not knowing that I had that support, that I had to do it, the terror, the utter abandonment, the just the, what am I going to do? The constant, what am I going to do? And I appreciated how raw and how real your emotions were, because there are so many women, like you said, walking in that situation, don't know what to do. And something interesting that you mentioned to me early on when we started working on this is that you said, you know, Renee, I see a lot of books about, you know, what to do if you're contemplating getting a divorce or filing for a divorce. And there was a lot of books about, you know, how to rebuild your life post-divorce. But you said you couldn't really find anything that dealt with what goes on in the middle of all of it, like while you're going through it. And that's why I really appreciate what you've done, because you've allowed yourself to be raw. You've allowed yourself to be vulnerable. You've allowed people to see you in the mess so that you can show them, this is how I got myself out of this. And that's what I appreciate so much about your book. Her book, by the way, is set up with writing prompts at the end of each chapter. So as Veronica is taking you through her story, she's also taking you through, here are some of the steps and things I did to work my way out of this situation. And I really appreciate that about your book.
Thank you. Yeah, it's crazy because here's another crazy part. Nobody knew I was writing a book, right? Only a handful of people knew that I had written it, that I was working on it. It was something that I was doing. And the divorce was extremely private. It was not, I did not blast any. I'm not one of those people that I was like, I hate him. You know?
Right. No, that was very smart.
Yeah.
We
kept it super, super private. And so it came as a shock when people were like, wait. Like, you're divorced, like your marriage is over. Wait, like what happened? Whatever. And so I was like, oh, you know, like it's whatever, you know, it's like a story for another day, you know, but in my head, I'm like, you'll read the book, you know what I mean? Like we'll figure it out later. And also I just was not in a place to just like discuss, what had happened. And I think, as people started figuring out from wherever, you know, because that's the other thing about living in a smaller town like Nashville, city town, whatever you want to call it, everybody knows everybody, right? And so your story goes around like a wildfire. And so I did have a lot of women, though. Here's the interesting. I had a lot of women who were contemplating divorce. I had a lot of women reach out to me in that time, in that season, and they kept asking me like, "Oh, should I get a divorce? Should I not get a divorce? Should I get a divorce? Should I not get a divorce?" And it's something that I address in the book where I'm like, "This is your decision. Like."
Right.
It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't even matter if our stories are the same or similar. Like, it's like, what can you actually live with for your life?
Right.
You know?
Such a great point too, because again, like you said, this is just your story, but you never, and nowhere in your book do you ever tell someone you need to do this. In fact, the chapter that you're talking about when you actually decided to file is way down in the book. It's not like, oh, I filed and I got rid of it. You really struggled with that. And like you said, you're finding more and more women seem to be in that position and don't know what to do. They're like paralyzed because they're so afraid.
Yeah, they're paralyzed. And the other thing, this is so funny. And also, like, having gone through it and then seeing it, it's like people always think that it's stay married or get divorced, and that, like, oh, if it's not working out, let's say working out, if it's not working out, they're like, I want to get a divorce. And I think a lot of people were shocked at my response back to them, because I'm like, listen, I got a divorce, but I don't want that for you. Like, truly, I don't. I'm like, I am. And a lot of people think that this book is pro-divorce. And so I wanted to make that really clear. And I had to make it clear on my Instagram. Like, I am pro-marriage. Like, I am so for strong, healthy relationships, good marriages, strong families. I'm not about divorce, but I am about helping you navigate the middle of it, because it is hard. And my book, I mean, and obviously you read it, and for the people who have read it, it is the back and forth of, I want to stay married and I'm going to work on this and I'm going to go all in and I'm going to, put my guts in there. You know what I mean? And then, next chapter is, I don't want to do this anymore. This is too freaking hard. Like, there's so much hurt. There's so much pain. And that really is the messy middle of divorce. It's like the going back and forth, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think as women, like, if you decide to stay married to somebody who has an affair on you, you're seen as stupid or as weak, or, the opposite of, like, if you're in a Christian home or whatever, or some of those like super religious circles, it's like, oh, well, you need to pray it. You need to pray about it longer and longer and longer and longer and longer, And so it's like, you never really win. You don't win, right? Either way.
Right.
And so this is what the book is, that, like, I decided that the win wasn't staying married. The win wasn't getting divorced. The win was me growing. It was me growing through the situation, figuring out why I'm here in the first place, and, taking personal responsibility for my part in this. And so I don't know, like, I'm really proud of the book, like, honestly,
I'm super proud of you with this book.
Yeah. It was really, really hard. And, like, that's the thing. It's like, when I got that mean comment, I was crying so hard, because I was like, I'm just so upset. People never understand your intention, right? Like, they can't see your heart in the things. And so I was really upset, because I was like, well, she doesn't understand. Like, yes, I've always wanted to be an author, but this was not the book I wanted to write.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. You would have loved to write a beautiful marriage story about all the things, or a story about anything else.
I want to write the Hallmark Channel story. What I'm saying?
Absolutely. But I mean, what I appreciate, Veronica, though, is that through this, you you do this throughout the whole book. Even you tell the girls, even up to to the end, whether you decide to divorce or not is not the issue, really. It was about how they would feel at the end of the day, and more importantly, what kind of person would you be as a parent to your child?
Yeah.
How is she? Because she is watching all of this, watching you model through this. And you said before that you want your daughter to grow up knowing that anytime she gets herself in a difficult situation, that she has the ability to rise up and be a warrior, and not, because there are so many women who are trapped in marriages that are unhappy and unfulfilled, and they end up spending their whole life. And then later on, when the husband eventually leaves, or they decide they've had enough, then
Mhm.
that's harder on their children, because they're like, well, were you just living a lie? What was,
Right.
and so I think it's so empowering that you are giving these women, first of all, permission. Yeah, Savannah. So the comments that we've got lots of comments populating in here, Savannah. Thank you for taking care of those. But Savannah said, realizing your own story has value, even if it isn't perfect, is eye-opening and so amazing. You know, that's a huge thing, that to empower these women, to empower these people who are going through this, who are struggling. First of all, who the first thing they do is try to deny their own feelings. Like
Right.
me, like you said, I'm hormonal. Well, surely I've done something. I don't know how many times in the book where you went through, I tried doing this, I did this, I wanted to be more this, I did,
Mhm.
yet really at the end of the day, you're sacrificing so much of yourself to prop up something that is not going to last.
Right.
And God does not get any glory in that, because we're wasting our time, our resource of time that we have to like you said, to grow and into the people that we're supposed to be,
Mhm.
to better the world, right?
Mhm.
So self-publishing, God, and I will say this 100 million times to people. If my friend who is a single mother can publish her book, you can too. There are no
Yeah.
excuses. The reason why I loved working with you so much is because, girl, you were on top of your game. When I gave you the little checklist of things we needed to have done, man, you were like on top. You were on top, and let's go, let's go, let's go. You were already behind getting your marketing organized. You were all about it. You were so fully engaged and so on, like, okay, got that done. What's next? Okay, got that done. What's next? That I was just like, I love her. And so many times, so many times I try to tell people,
Yeah.
I'm the editor, not the publisher,
Yeah.
right? I have resources to people who can do this, but I do this part, and I collaborate with this person who does
Mhm.
formatting and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not. So you became so much part of a team rather than me feeling like, oh my God, so I got to do, and I do a lot of hand holding with authors, but
Mhm.
you were such a dream to work with, because
Thanks.
you're all about, and this is why I know, I mean, girlfriend, I just know your story is not finished, and you're just going on and on to new chapters, because this is going to not only empower you, but empower so many people who are looking for help, who are looking for just somebody, please tell me I'm not going crazy.
Yeah.
I can actually do this, right?
Yeah.
So I was so ecstatic. So we were scheduled to launch on the 28th. Hey,
Mhm.
you launched early.
I did. Accidentally. It's
That's
okay.
lovely. You know why? Because you had everything clean and nice and good, and Amazon said, no problems with this one. Let's go. She's great, right?
Yeah. Peace.
You do,
Goodbye.
you do all the right things. And so that is the beauty of doing that. What would you say would be the not the biggest, but maybe some things that along in our process you learned about
Mhm.
the whole self-publishing process, that you could say encourage someone else to not be afraid to take the jump and do it? What would you say were some things that you learned about the process that kind of surprised you?
I would say I think when you think about self-publishing, you think, "Oh my God, this is going to be so hard. Like, how am I going to figure it out? Like, whatever." We live in a world of information right now. This is like the age of information, and you can literally Google anything and figure it out. So I thought it was going to be way harder, and also I was very what's the word?
Skeptical?
Yeah, skeptical. I'm like, can I actually do this? A lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of like, wait, like, is this going to be a good idea or whatever? But I definitely learned like through a lot of the resources that you sent me, Googling stuff. I'm like, oh, this is actually like normal. Let's say normal. Self-publishing is normal now. Like a couple of years ago, not more than a couple of years ago, but maybe like a decade ago, like people who were self-publishing, like you automatically assume, oh, because you can't get a publishing deal. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
And now, like, I mean, I got to tell you, the reason I decided to self-publish was because of one of my favorite authors. Her name is Kara Alwill Leba. And you know, she writes, like, you know, self-help books for like Girls on Fire, and like what is
Right.
it, Girl Code. And when I read one of her books, she was like, this is a self-published book, and let me tell you why I decided to self-publish. And I just resonated with her message of, like, you want to do things on your own terms. And that's 100%.
You want to own the rights to your
Yeah,
story.
you want to own it.
To your story. Yes.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay. And so, like, I checked out her profile on Instagram, and like I kept reading up on her story and how long it's taken her and all this other stuff. And I mean, she is now like a top best-selling author in this category of like self-help. And so I was like, here's the thing, women, I need every woman in the world to know this. When somebody does it before you, that's like somebody showing you it can be done.
Absolutely. And you are going to be like my flag, you know, waving example, because again, if a single mother can do this, you can do this. I mean, that's why I get on here every weekend and I tell people, share your stories. Share your stories. The biggest thing we can do right now, where publishing deals back in my day, you know, you had to beg and crawl and grovel to these publishers, and they would maybe deign to give you a little, you know. But now, you know, the big publishers, if you notice now, the big top 5, what they're doing is they're acquiring and gobbling up the smaller ones who can't, you know, stay afloat. But even large publishing companies are doing this, what they call hybrid publishing, which is basically charging you a lot of money to slap their logo on the back of your book. But what you do is you end up signing, like I said, the rights of your story away to a publisher who has the ability to amend your story to fit their publishing style. So as I showed in the video earlier this morning, as of 2020, 1.7 million new books were self-published in the United States. That's an increase of 264% in the past 5 years. And right now, 43% of all new books published are self-published.
That's crazy.
Are self-published. Children's fiction is the most popular genre of books, achieving over 1 billion with a B books sold. And here's another thing that I've seen that kind of, I have to go, okay, Ronnie, don't lose it. Don't lose it. Don't just scroll on by. You know, the whole, you can publish your book in 30 days. Well, sure you can. You can upload a file to Amazon, no problem. But if you really want to take the time to put out a polished, high quality product, then 3 to 6 months is usually the timetable. And then that's just on nonfiction. On fiction could be longer if you're dealing with, especially fantasy fiction, if there's photos in the book, that kind of thing. So it can be done, but like anything else, why would you just, that's like, I'm going to type up something in Word and throw it out there, right? Why would you want to do that? You want to collaborate with the right person, the right people, and put a team together like you did of people to create something that you can use for speaking engagements. I tell people all the time, see your book as a product, an extension of who you are. If you speak, you know, you're speaking at conferences, or if you're involved with teams at work or whatever, you know, your book has become like the new calling card. When people want to know more about you, and I know I can go to your website, but even the website doesn't really dive into who you are.
Right.
Putting a book in their hand, you say, here's my story right here. Take it, you know, grab a copy of it, or if you have speaking engagements, you have your books with you that you can share with people. And again, it just opens the door of opportunity for you to expand your brand, to, you know, and who knows, maybe years down the road, you might be telling another different story. So speaking of your story, and again, Veronica is so good about being private, and I love that about you, because we don't have to put all our stuff on the socials. Oh my Lord, Jesus. Right? I laugh at what people resonate with. Like, I posted a picture of, you know, Michael and I, but more Michael, sold the house that we used to live in. Mind you, we bought our other house at the end of 2019 and moved it in 2020. So thank you, pandemic. We decided to buy a house and start moving during the pandemic when everything was shut down and we couldn't get moving trucks. But so we finally sold our other house. And so I posted a picture of the house because I said, you know, we're saying goodbye to Versailles. because and the street that it was on was called Versailles. So we used to call it Versailles. It was kind of funny. We're going to Versailles.
Yeah.
This is the home where I only got to live there 3 years. This is the home that my life started over. This is the chapter of where my new life began. It's the house where I went through my breast cancer battle. And but Michael lived there for 32 years. So you talk about memories and stories of being at home. I posted that picture and everybody like, likes and share likes, just like, really, it's a picture of a house. Y'all are so fascinated by my picture of my house. Okay, I appreciate that. But you, looks like you have sort of a continuing chapter in your life, because I saw an Instagram post as you were promoting your stuff, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I saw him. Wait, who is that? Who is that? And I was like, oh, she has a new guy in her life.
Yeah.
I'm so excited about that. So your story is not over. The next chapter is just beginning, because you have a new person. God's brought a new person into your life. So
yes.
You don't have to share a lot about him, but I'm just so excited because I was like, ooh, I'm going to just hug her even more when I see her tomorrow.
And you'll see him tomorrow. So yes, I'm very excited, very fortunate. And honestly, it's one of those things that, like, you and I have talked about, like, I have a hair just flying in the air, the most unexpected people come into your life when you least expect them, right? And then it's like, I call it the kiss of heaven. That's what I call moments like that in my life. I always call it the kiss of heaven, because I'm like, you could have never done it yourself. You could have never orchestrated it. It just happened.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because there's a part of my book that I'm explaining the kind of person that I want. Like, I'm literally explaining the personality traits and some of the things that I want. And that is exactly, his name is Ryan. That is exactly what Ryan is. And I'm like, like this is crazy.
Listen, when Michael came out, I said, wow, God, talk about pulling a card out of the deck so far back in the past. I would not have even considered, like, Michael and I, we never talked. We never knew about each other. We didn't know anything about each other for the last 30 years until we went to that reunion party and the Facebook group formed and people were kind of, oh, wow. And everybody started finding each other on social media. We were like, oh, we're so excited. Like, I had no idea, because I had told God after Sam died, I said, look, I was lucky to have a faithful man and a good father for 30 years. Lord, thank you how can I even assume that I could dare to ask you for, I want a new man. No, I said, listen, all I want is if you will take care of me and my kids, I'm okay, because it's going to take you dropping someone in my lap, because I'm not looking. My heart is still broken. I don't know that I could ever open up to another person and love like I did my husband.
Yeah.
And right? Like when you say those kisses from heaven, those moments where you're like, wait a minute, you were writing the words and speaking them out loud of what you wanted.
Yeah.
And God said, oh, you mean like this?
Right. And what's crazy is that sometimes, for me especially, I mean, the story, the stuff that happened, like just massive betrayal. And it's really hard to believe that you can have that sometimes, like I struggled with it for a while. I even broke up with him.
I love this. Dana. Hi, Dana. It's good to see you, Dana. Dana goes, you wrote him. You actually wrote him.
I wrote him. I wrote the character into my life. And he's better than what I wrote, to be honest. I mean, I've just never had somebody like actually like see me as a person, and like he really does. And so it's been a beautiful experience. It's also been a hard experience because, the healing journey is never done. You're going to come across your own triggers. You're going to come across stuff. And, like I say in the book, like your triggers are actually your invitation to heal. This is your time to like, okay, this still hurts. Let's figure out why. Let's dig deeper into that. And so he's been extremely patient with all of that, because I've had a lot to navigate and bump up against, and also still being a very single mom and tired and working and doing all the things.
Right.
So he's been extremely supportive. I feel very, very fortunate. And it literally is a kiss of heaven. Like I can't explain it. It's just been it's really been amazing. And like, I mean, I wrote him in the acknowledgments of the book because I was just like, I literally could not have navigated the season of getting a divorce and starting all over again without him. He also had a divorce, but it was like years ago. So he's like a seasoned divorce person, if you will.
Well,
And
he's
so
also been through it and knows what he wants in a relationship.
Mhm.
You're at the same place. And how
Mhm.
cool that the two of you found each other. Savannah said, you manifested him, girl.
Yeah, girl.
You did.
I sure did. Did you see him? He's a silver fox. My God, he's beautiful.
Right. Listen, so is mine. So is mine. Dana said, I love that philosophy. Triggers are an invitation to heal. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, and I appreciated that about your book because again, like I said, you let readers see that side of you that was completely crushed, completely broken.
Mhm.
I mean, when I read that you were 4 weeks from delivering in the fetal position in your bathroom sobbing, I cried. Like I cried reading it. I was like, and I think I even messaged you a couple times during we were writing the book. Honey, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I love you so much. I'm so proud of you for sharing your story because not a lot of people are willing to go there.
Right.
They're not, they will share some of it, but they don't let readers into that deep space of feeling all those pains and feeling all those feelings
Mhm.
and sitting in that for a minute to go, okay, but like you said, those
Mhm.
triggers, those things are the moments where it's like God is trying to tell us, I want to fix this. I know it hurts. Just like with our kids, right? When they're little and they fall down and they're screaming, you're trying to clean them off. And I know it hurts. I know it hurts. I know it hurts, but it's
Yeah.
going to get better. We're going to do
Yeah.
this and it's going to sting for a little bit and then you're going to get better. You're going to heal.
Yep.
And so I find that so beautiful about your story because not only has it brought you out of your situation and brought you to a place of healing for this stage, but it opened your life up to be able to see when Ryan came along to see, oh, here's potential of someone who's looking for the same things I am, who's willing to fight for the same things I am, and see, how that collaboration will be. So I'm just over the moon excited for you.
Thanks.
I'm over the moon proud of you, first of all, being able to do this. And yes, you can self-publish your book because in this day and age with digital, like you said, in the information age, it is possible. It's just that, like anything else, you want to do it well so that you put out a product that reflects that excellence. So I just appreciate you letting me be a part of your story. And I got to tell you, being a mom with my kids older, I look at you and just like, gosh, you could be my daughter too. But I just appreciate getting to see the process and watching this. I remember the day when you sent me the message because I even ran into Michael's office and showed it to him. And even got his input, like when we were trying to decide on the book cover thing. Remember, and I told you, I said, okay, I just asked my husband randomly, Mr. Years of promotions and doing stuff and working with things. And I ran in there and I said, but when you sent me that text, I ran in his office and I was crying because I was like, this is what I live for right here. This is what I live for. So when I watch my authors become actual published authors, right? Dave wants to know link to the book. Yes, so I will show you that. So you can go on Amazon. In fact, I'm going to put the link right here. And I don't know if it'll probably give you my Amazon link, but that's okay. I'm going to put it here in the comments. But yes, it's a fun book. I love her dearly for doing this. She is, let's see, here we go. Yes, copy book is having the launch party tomorrow. So you will see me posting and sharing photos. I want to go live from her thing so I can celebrate her. Here we go. And I'm going to show it. So, oh, there it is. There's in the comments. And right here is on Amazon. But you can go to, again, let me show the title of her book in the stream here because that's most important. Here we go. Yeah, there it is. There it is. Half-baked love. Look at her with those cookies. And now here's another thing. You know, what's the chocolate chip cookies about? Well, you're going to have to find out. You're going to have to grab a copy of her book. Find out.
Don't be at the part too. Of course.
Yep. Half-baked love. Well, Veronica, listen, I am, again, if I can't tell you enough, I will tell you again. I'm just so proud of you for doing this. I'm super proud of what you've done with your life, how you've handled this speed bump in the road of life. That more than anything, what you've learned is that you know you have it in you to overcome those kinds of obstacles in life.
Yeah.
And that's going to serve you well later on, because life is full of those moments, right? And we can't, you know, the best thing we can do is, like you said, to learn from them and to grow through them. And I've seen you grow a lot during this process. So I can't wait to see you tomorrow. I can't wait. So guys, definitely thanks to everybody on the live stream who's been here and commenting. I appreciate it. You can pick up a copy of Veronica's book, Amazon, or even your local bookstores. Go into your local bookstores, ask them for the book. You'll be able to get them through your local bookstores and check it out. It's a wonderfully redeeming story of how someone overcame an incredible obstacle in her life and yet overcame that. And not only did she overcome it, but she wants to empower you to empower other women who are going through the same thing and learn how to overcome those obstacles so that you can walk in your fullness and hopefully find a happy ending to your story as well, right? Dana's going to go grab a copy. Look at her. All right, Dana. And listen, I've had Dana on the show too. Dana is my friend who was a Vanderbilt researcher.
Oh, nice.
Cancer, and ended up getting breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Now works for the Komen Foundation. Yes. So I love Dana, and Dana's story is great too. So I just love, again, the power of story, the power of sharing your story. You never know the difference you can make in life, but you won't make this in their life unless you share your story. So Veronica, thank you for sharing yours with me today here, honey. Again, I can't wait to see you tomorrow to celebrate. And guys, if you need help publishing your book, yes, I am an editor. I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome. I try not to, tout my bubble because there's lots of folks out there. But let me tell you, if I can help you through this process, like I did with Veronica, and show you you can do this, it is possible. And the world is waiting for you to tell your story. So if you want to contact me, if you have any questions, if you just want to sit down and have coffee and talk it through and see whether or not you're ready, or maybe maybe you want to wait for NaNoWriMo and use that as an exercise to beef up your book. I'm working with some authors right now who are in beta reading form, and they're kind of working with their readers to get some feedback. They're tweaking their stories. So again, it's doable. It can be done. And I want to help you do that, just like I did with Veronica. So drop me a note. Let me know how I can help. And remember, if you want to join the book club just to get started, to know me, you can do that too. But anything you need, any questions you have, definitely let me know. And again, don't forget to grab a copy of Veronica's book. All right. So guys, thanks for being here. It's always a pleasure. Veronica, thanks for taking your Saturday morning with me and chatting with folks, encouraging them and sharing your story. I really appreciate it. I'll be back next week with a story about how to tell your story when you want to maybe think about actually taking your story and starting a movement, starting something that actually benefits and helps some people who are in a different situation than you. Talking about how, so we're going to be talking to my friend Carol Harris about how she started her nonprofit organization to help empower and serve the women of the Nashville Rescue Mission. So it'll be interesting to hear her story about how she started a nonprofit organization simply by something she did as a gesture of help through church. So it'll be interesting to hear her story next week. I hope you'll be able to join me. Until then, guys, remember, share a little bit of your awesome with the world. You never know the difference you can make in somebody's life and how powerful your story can be. All right? All right, guys, thanks. Have a great weekend. Veronica, I love you. I'll see you tomorrow. Guys,
See you tomorrow.
Have a great day. We'll be back next week.